In 2023, I caught a lot of big fish on several different lures. I caught a 7-pounder on the Kissimmee chain on a spinnerbait.
Biggin. Boom, baby.
I caught several big fish on the bellows shad at Bussy Break in northern Louisiana. And I also caught several giant smallmouth this year on the Old Faithful drop shot.
4-pounder, baby. Let's go. There's one.
It's about a 4.9. That's one, baby. That's one. And as much as I'll rely on those baits in 2024 and the years to come, there are a few baits that I'm looking to add into my arsenal and just become better at. I'm always trying to challenge myself as an angler. Fishing outside of your comfort zone, especially during the off season, is something I always try to do to better my skills and give myself confidence in these different techniques. And here are 3 techniques that I'm trying to put in the forefront of my arsenal for 2024. Bait number 1 I'm trying to get better with is the jig. And I know what you're probably thinking. Alton, you're a professional bass fisherman, and a jig is the most old school, caught more bass bait than just about any of them. But you know, when I look at myself as an angler, a jig is not in the top 3, 4 things I usually pick up. Now, I caught some fish on a jig this year, but it's usually way down the list of baits. And it's a bait that I think nowadays just really gets overlooked. Everybody downsizes, finesse fishes, and you know, you see things make a comeback. Like for me, a spinnerbait has made a comeback in 2023 and the years prior. I think a jig is going to be one of those baits for me in 2024. I've got a swim jig right here, but I'm really just talking broad spectrum jigs in general. A finesse jig, a football jig. I look at Toledo Bend, more than likely going to be an offshore event. Football jig could play really big there. Then, you know, fast forward later in the year, we've got heavy hitters down at the Kissimmee chain. It'll be post-spawn, swimming a jig in the Kissimmee grass, could really play big. Chowan River, shallow water grass fishery. James River, shallow water grass fishery. Those are both lakes where a swim jig could play and very well will play for some anglers. So that's something I'm really trying to bring into my arsenal, just all-round confidence in a jig. Whereas, you know, I used to pick up a spinnerbait or a buzz bait or a compact flipping setup. Now I want to be picking up a flipping jig or a swim jig, depending on the conditions. So that's bait number 1. Bait number 2 is going to be a technique. Actually, it's not a specific bait. You'll see I've got the bellows shad here, but it is the free rig. You might have seen me talk about the free rig in some of my past videos, but this is a JDM technique that is making its way to the United States, just like the Nico rig or Neko rig if you're really technical. The wacky rig. I mean, all of these things are things that came from Japan, and this is no different. Wide gap, EWG, hook of your choice, bait of your choice. I've got the bellows shad on here, and a free sliding drop shot sinker that's just threaded onto the line. And this just allows the bait to give you a natural slow fall presentation at deeper depths, places where you really couldn't throw a weightless presentation. And I've also talked to some guys, you know, flipping this. Fishing it shallow has been a really big deal. They see creature baits and baits that have peg sinkers all the time. So just having something where the weight's going to go to the bottom, the bait's either going to fall or you're going to work the bait to the weight is going to give it just a really different look. And I've said it in so many videos before. In a time where fishing pressure is at an all-time high, they're seeing more baits and more techniques than ever. Having something different than the anglers around you can be the difference in getting a check or winning a tournament. Or not getting a check and getting a check. So bait number 2, technique number 2 is the free rig. Bait number 3, I'm embarrassed to admit it, but it's the Ned Rig. It's no secret, Major League Fishing, Bass Pro Tour, we're going back to every fish counts, and that means one thing, generating bites. While there will be a variable minimum, some places we're gonna have 2.5 pound minimums, you're gonna have to catch some quality. But the name of the game in every fish counts format is being able to generate bites. And a lot of times that means downsizing and you know, throwing a drop shot, throwing a Demiki rig, throwing a Ned rig. And really this is just a bait. I catch some smallmouth on it, but it's not really in my largemouth arsenal. We've got some really cold events, I'm assuming, in the first 2 with Toledo Bend and Santee Cooper, one being in January, other being in February. There's a chance we could see some wildly cold weather, which means tough fish, dragging something very, very slow along the bottom, and something small and compact like a Ned Rig is really, really tough to beat. It's one of those baits that the real key to it is to not overwork it. You let it just kind of be that do nothing bait that drags along the bottom, and it really does generate bites when fishing is incredibly tough. And look, don't let it take away my man card. I'm just trying to generate bites, and if this is what does it, I'll throw it all day long.
Yeah, you tell them.
Hey, I took some people fishing not too long ago. Dude caught a 9.4 on a Ned Rig behind me. While I'm throwing a glide bait, doing something cool, dragging a Ned Rig, he caught a 9.4. So that's one of the reasons it's added into my arsenal. They wouldn't bite a drop shot that day very well, but a Ned Rig was like 3 to 4 to 1, and I'm like, you know what? I need to start throwing this on tough days. And for the last bait I'm trying to add to the forefront of my arsenal, it's a lipless crankbait. I won my very first ever major tournament on a lipless crankbait. I was gonna hold up the trophy.
Oh.
Something that has been in my arsenal before.
Go get the trophy.
Okay, there's so many trophies I can't figure out which one it is. Dust this bad boy off. And so I'm trying to add this back to the forefront. And so I've caught a lot of fish on a lipless crankbait before. It used to be one of my favorite ways to catch bass, but in the world of a chatterbait and a spinnerbait and a jerkbait with forward-facing sonar in a lot of these scenarios, the lipless crankbait has become kind of obsolete for me as an angler. I won my first ever major tournament, the Bass Champs, Lake Amistad, on a lipless crankbait, Rayburn Red, Excalibur one knocker that they don't make anymore. So it's something that I have a lot of history with, I have a lot of experience with, a lot of confidence in, but I just find myself going back to my comfort zones of spinnerbait, chatterbait, jerkbait, and I feel like a lipless crankbait, especially at the professional level, gets very, very overlooked. You know, when I look at the tournament schedule, Toledo Bend, if we've got some warmer weather, it's got a lot of hydrilla, a lipless crankbait could very well play. I'll definitely be throwing a red one, being in the south in the pre-spawn. Santee Cooper, another place, lots of grass, eelgrass. If we get some warmer weather, you're gonna have fish moving up into those pre-spawn areas. A lipless crankbait could very well play. And then, it's a great shad spawn bait too. I look at the rest of our schedule, heavy hitters down in Florida, another place, if I'm around a shad spawn on some of those outside grass lines, a lipless crankbait could be a killer. And so it's a bait that I think really kind of gets overshadowed by the chatterbait especially. I want to try to get some more confidence in it, and I think it could be a really big player for me in 2024. Thank you guys for watching today's video. If you want to see all the ways that I rig the bellows shad, not just on the free rig, but all the ways I like to catch fish with it, click the link up in the corner right here and stay tuned to the channel. You'll get to see how I do on all the baits that I just talked about in 2024.